Okay, I am back. Hello, everybody. My name is Chip Knight. This is my website, from prison to professor.com. I am a convicted marijuana trafficker that spent 6.25 years in the Arizona Department of Corrections for possession of marijuana. And after prison, I spent 8 years in school studying information technology. I have 3 degrees. After grad school, I was recruited to Washington, D.C. to work on a presidential directive, and I was granted a security clearance. And today I want to talk about meth. Now, before I went to prison, I know I read in a few places, I watched some documentaries where people were talking about the fact that heroin was the one big common denominator amongst convicts. And I also heard and read and saw in documentaries that more heroin addicts leave prison than go to prison. So when I was in prison, I had, there's no getting around, from a sociological point of view. You have access to information, stories, experiences that you would never find out about had you not been in prison. And some of the more compelling stories were about drugs, drug abuse, drug addiction. As it turns out, in modern-day prison, meth is more of a common denominator between convicts than heroin. So I heard a number of compelling stories about meth from people that were living, the results of a disastrous experience with meth. And the first guy that I met and talked to that had a very compelling story, I was back in the Madison Street jail on my appeal, and I met this guy who, his life, I think, was just destroyed because of meth. And prior to meth, he worked for the railroad. He owned a home, or he had a mortgage. He had a couple of cars in the driveway that were paid off. And his life was really good. And then he went to a party. And someone said, "Oh, you should try shooting meth, man. It's the best." And he tried it, became an instant addict. And then over a period of, I don't know if it was a year or 2 years, he lost everything. He lost his job. He lost his home. He had to sell his cars for drug money and money to live on, and then eventually, was homeless and on the streets. And, that is a story. Well, we know the path to get rid of drugs in a society is through education and treatment. It's not prison. There are other countries that have managed that problem to a success. And I think America's finally getting around to getting, a better understanding of the weakness people feel when they get addicted to drugs. I talked to another guy in the Madison Street jail that had a similar story with meth. The guy had a regular life. Everything was going along okay. Then he went to a party. And someone said, "Oh, you should try shooting meth, man. It's the best." And he tried it. And he became an addict that night. He loved it. And his experience was that when that meth hit his bloodstream, he ejaculated. Now, I remember once listening to Howard Stern, and I think Howard Stern phrased the drug addiction. He said, these are people that when they do the drugs, it hits the pleasure center of their brain harder than anything else. I think for most people, the pleasure center of the brain is sex, right? When you have sex, it's amazing. If you have good sex. But imagine that. Imagine having this drug hit your bloodstream and then you ejaculate right there, in your pants. And the guy I talked about, that worked for the railroad, he had a similar experience. The first time he did his first, someone injected him, he shit his pants. And apparently, this is sort of common, to either shit your pants or to ejaculate. But think about me injecting a drug and having it hit the pleasure center of your brain so hard that you ejaculate. What's ever going to come in comparison with that? The closest thing I ever found to something to be as good as sex was the endorphin high from either running or riding a bicycle. That's pretty good. But it's not as good as sex. I read this article. I can't remember what magazine it was. But it talked about, and I think the caption of the article was, Faces of Meth Users. After 10 years, there's some pictures. And these two people died before they were 38, or died at the age of 38. Meth extracts an incredible physical toll on the body. And I would think that there would be, now because we understand more, a little more compassion and a little more understanding. But I have a sister, Bonnie, who just fucked her life up horribly because she got hooked on oxys. Working for a dentist, stealing money from the dentist to buy oxys, calling in prescriptions, unauthorized prescriptions, and then she'd go and pick them up. And I believe at the end, before she went to prison, she was taking 100 oxys a day. Well, she was taking the Vicodin, and there's different names, but Vicodin was her drug of choice. Yeah, if you would have given my sister money when she was homeless with a child, she would have taken that money and bought drugs with it. I mean, that's how crazy. There's a pharmacy when I first moved to Florida. There's a pharmacy that near my house that I was going to. And I went in one day to pick up a prescription, and the pharmacist told me that he had been robbed the day before. And the robber came into the pharmacy and said his wife was a cancer patient. She's on very powerful medications, and are these medications that we can have sent to this pharmacy, the prescriptions? Pharmacist said absolutely. So the guy left. He came back an hour later with a bandana around his face. Like, no one's going to recognize you if you put that bandana on. And he looked right up at the camera. He knew he was being filmed or videotaped. And, still the gun came out, give me the drugs. He got the drugs, and then he left on foot. He was an armed robber on foot. And I saw the picture that they put in the local paper showing this guy with the bandana and a gun in his hand, a bandana around his face, and looking up at the camera. And he risks decades in prison. And you look at the camera, you know they're going to catch you. And it took about an hour or two to catch the guy. So when you're on foot, how far can you get? Probably ate a bunch of pills and then went to go take a nap somewhere. But how much more proof do you need about the irrational behavior of drug addicts? How do you fix them? Because I know there's some that seem to be unfixable. But meth is the one that, boy, it just seems so destructive. It's cheaper than cocaine, and the high lasts longer. Yeah, and some people, they just try it for the first time, and then it's all over for them. Welcome to drug addiction. And on that note, I need to stop here for now. Once again, my name is Chip Knight. This is my website, from prisontoprofessor.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Ciao.